Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm gonna be testing the GTX 1660 Ti in PUBG Season 5. Actually, I haven't tested PUBG Season 5 yet in all of my graphics cards, so expect some PUBG videos coming out pretty soon. We're running the driver version 441.20, which are the latest drivers from Nvidia. Our GPU here is a Zotac AMP edition of the card, and it's overclocked a little bit, plus 50 MHz on the core, plus 200 MHz on the memory. And we're running a Ryzen 7 3700X with 16 gigs of RAM, clocked at 3200 MHz, dual channel. Of course, you don't need a Ryzen 7 3700X to run this game at these FPS that we're about to see. A Ryzen 5 3600 is absolutely fine to go with the 1660 Ti and not bottleneck it, or at least not bottleneck it at higher settings. You'll get pretty much the same FPS with that CPU and the Ryzen 7 3700X, because after all, the single core performance is pretty much the same. As you can see now, we're going to start with 1080p, very low settings. We're also going to be testing epic view distance over here with everything else on very low, which I feel like it's competitive settings, maybe with some higher resolution texture, because the game looks quite bad with very low textures. And then we're going to be rolling through the presets like low, medium, high and ultra settings. So this is going to be quite a big video, and guys, we're going to be testing it here at first person shooter mode. So our FOV is actually set at 103. It's a little bit higher than the third person shooter FOV, which I think it's like 80 to 85. And yeah, so you should expect like 3-4 more FPS at third person than first person, but that doesn't really matter too much because we're into the 200s, as you can see, at least while dropping, you know. And guys, you know what? I did something new over here. Look at the graph. Just look at it closely. Look at the OSD. Oh boy, what the heck is that? Average FPS and 1% lows? What is this? Is this the future? Yes guys, I introduced some more stats for you. Some of you have been asking for it, so here you go. Okay, so while dropping, we're actually seeing quite low 1% lows because, well, the game stutters a little bit while dropping. That's normal for everybody that plays PUBG. Alright guys, the best I could find was a revolver. So we're starting off a little bit bad over here. I'm gonna do the average thing again. As you can see, now our 1% lows should be in the 100s, I think, unless we stutter a little bit, because it's actually like random, I think, when this game stutters or not. And as you can see guys, if you have a 144Hz monitor and are willing to play this game at very low settings with the 1660 Ti and the CPU similar to the 3700X, so that is, for example, the Ryzen 5 3600 that I mentioned earlier, i7 8700K at stock, of course. If you overclock that, you should probably be able to get more FPS than this, and even like an i7 7700K should be able to provide you with these FPS, kind of in the ballpark at least, because as you can see, our CPU usage is actually between 20 and 30%, so that means we are not using more than 4 cores or 4 threads. So the i7 7700K and any like quad core i7 that's like Skylake and up should be able to run this game absolutely fine above 150 FPS average. Looking at the entire city of Pochinki, which is quite demanding for your CPU, as you can see, our GPU is being bottlenecked a little bit. We're getting like 120 FPS around that, so yeah, that's dropping our average by a little bit. Oh boy, okay, why did I change that? Even here, the FPS are quite smooth. It drops to like 110 sometimes, 107 there. It's not too bad, you know. Of course, if you want 144 Hz and up every time here in PUBG, you will need quite a beefier CPU, like an i9 9900K or that 8700K overclocked to like 4.8 gigahertz. 4.5, actually I think that one runs at 4.6 gigahertz in all core turbo out of the box. Not really sure about that, I don't really remember it. Yeah, it's something like that. So maybe like a 5 gigahertz overclock on an 8700K will put you in like the 200s all of the time, probably. I'm not really sure about that, but of course that's a little bit of an unrealistic configuration. So yeah, you should probably run this GPU with the Ryzen 5 3600, and that's a more adequate CPU in more or less the same price range as this GPU, so that's a very decent combo, I would say. So as you can see guys, our FPS here at low settings are pretty good, and you can definitely play this game with the 144Hz monitor without an issue. Should I be doing this? Probably not. I only have a UMP. God damn it. And let's set our view distance here to ultra and maybe our textures to like what, medium? I think medium textures actually look pretty good. Alright guys, let's do this. Okay, as you can see now, our average and 1% lows are back up again. And let's see how many FPS we can get running through the same path over here to the church and looking at the entire city from up there. So I think our FPS a little bit lower right now. Maybe, probably, that makes sense, you know, because, well, we just increased the view distance and that's quite a CPU demanding option actually. So we should see our GPU usage still fluctuating between like 50 or 60% to like 80+% or 90+% actually sometimes. Yeah, that's not too bad actually. And by the way guys, you should expect pretty much the same FPS or pretty similar FPS to what we're seeing with a GTX 1070. Many of you actually asked me if I could do a GTX 1070 video or videos, but yeah, I don't have that card unfortunately. And guys, as you can see, we're getting like pretty much the same FPS looking at the entire city of Pochinki. I think we're seeing a little bit higher GPU usage here, but correct me if I'm wrong, not really sure. Yeah. So far so good. This is very playable still, obviously, and if you want to play PUBG competitively, I think a Ryzen 5 3600 with the 1660 Ti will do a very good job. Even like an i5 7600K should provide you with pretty good FPS in this game since it only uses like 4 threads. So yeah, you should be fine with that. Just don't do any streaming and stuff like that with the i5, even like any multitasking, because that's a bad idea with that chip. A 4-core chip is only for gaming and only for gaming in the games that don't really use more than 4 threads, because 4 threads actually in 2019, at least in the latest and greatest titles, is not enough anymore, unfortunately. We've seen many games stutter in quad-core CPUs with only 4 threads, of course. Quad cores with 8 threads, so i7s from the 7th gen and lower, are actually still fine. But for example, take a look at the Red Dead Redemption 2 videos. Yeah, Red Dead Redemption is one of those games that really doesn't like quad cores without hyper-threading, and it actually runs worse on the i5 7600K, for example, than the i7 2600. So yeah, the 2600 is actually a CPU from 2011 or 12, so it's a very old chip by today's standards, but still manages to deliver a more playable experience than an i5 7600K in Red Dead Redemption 2. And yeah, here we go again. 1080p, low settings, as you can see. Let's start off our average and 1% low counts. So we got a little stutter there, as you could see. Our 1% lows actually dropped to 25 for a second there, but now it's up into the 100s. But notice that now we're actually using quite a bit more of our GPU. Well, not looking at the entire city because it's heavily CPU bound when we're looking at all of those things. But yeah, over here we're actually seeing it in the high 90s percentile usages. So that's good to see, you know. So as you can see right now, we're getting 170 FPS average, around that. And as you can see, it still drops to the same results here, 110 to 115 FPS around here, looking at the entire city. So yep, this is a CPU bound scenario. That's why you don't see the FPS changing when you set different settings. You know what, guys? If you have that 144Hz monitor and want to play this game on low settings and have those higher end or mid-range CPUs from this year, yeah, you know what? This game still runs very well. Of course, like an i5 9400F should be pretty close to this as well. So keep that in mind if you want to buy one of those. But my recommendation is actually the Ryzen 5 3600. I feel like those 12 threads are actually already making a difference in a very like multi-threaded games. For example, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Battlefield 5. I think the Ryzen 5 will pull ahead by quite a bit in those games with we got a little bit of a lag there. Okay, as you can see guys, right now at these settings we're getting like pretty much the same FPS. Our GPU usage actually goes up to 100% sometimes, or at least like 95+%, so that's good to see. And of course the experience has been pretty much the same here with all of these settings that we've tested so far. So let's do medium settings now. As you can see, everything is set to medium. Let's restart our count here. And let's go guys. Okay, so our little stutter again in the same spot. Oh, come on. The circle is coming, guys. God damn it. Will our FPS drop? Nope, it's the same, so we can go ahead and die with the circle while we benchmark this card here at medium settings. So as you can see guys, now our GPU usage should be at 90+% pretty much at all times. Even when looking at the city, as you can see, it's very close to 90% usage. We got like 87 or 86% usage minimum there. So yeah, now we're starting to get more GPU bound, and you'll actually benefit at these settings from a beefier GPU in some areas, of course, because as you can see right now, we're looking at the entire city and we are still CPU bound. We actually dropped like 5 FPS, so one of the settings, or maybe two of the settings that we have set to medium, are actually impacting our CPU performance a little bit. So yeah, we're seeing like a 5 FPS drop looking at the entire city. It's still very smooth, you know. If you still have that high refresh rate monitor, you should experience a very smooth gameplay here playing PUBG with the 1660 Ti and a CPU like this. I feel like I talk about these things every time we go through here. That's weird. Okay, just running around the city here, 120 FPS, not bad. Still a very smooth experience in one of those monitors. This is actually a pretty damn good setup for playing PUBG at, you know. And now I'm just gonna go ahead, leave this game and join another one so we can continue the testing at high settings. Oh man, okay, so this is like cloudy weather. I'm not sure if that impacts our frame rate, so I'm just gonna join another one. Oh my god, look at that. PUBG is getting weirder by the day. Back when PUBG released Miramar, which was the desert map, I didn't really want to test this game in that map because it was a little bit less demanding, at least like in the desert-ish parts of the map. I think in the cities it was too inconsistent. We were actually getting drops to like the 20s with the Xeon E3 1231v3 and the GTX 1060. The Xeon, of course, was bottlenecking it too much. It was actually like an i7 4770. By the way, we're playing on high settings now. I forgot to show you that. 1080p high settings across the board. We're just gonna wait a few seconds and loot this house, and then I'm gonna enable those metrics. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so high settings now at 1080p with the GTX 1660 Ti. Is it enough to get us around like 130 FPS average? That would be amazing coming out from this card at high settings. That would mean that a 144Hz monitor would actually be very well utilized here with a mid-range card like a 1660 Ti. But yeah, about Miramar, because I haven't finished talking about that. I wanted to test Erangel instead of Miramar, but the game didn't have a map selection system, and it actually used to put you playing Miramar like 80% of the times. And of course there was still the weather issue, so I spent a ton of time trying to make the damn game work in Erangel back then. That was really bad to benchmark. At least it was really hard to get consistent like weather and consistent like in the same map, you know, because of Miramar. But yeah, enough with that. As you can see here, looking at the entire city of Pochinki, we're still getting pretty much the same FPS as we got on medium settings, so around 105, 107. Yeah, you know, this is not too bad. Okay, so we're still CPU bound at high settings. Look at the entire city. But of course, PUBG has always been a very CPU demanding game and GPU demanding as well at ultra settings, of course. But most mostly like CPU demanding, because most people actually play on very low or medium settings, and at those settings you'll definitely need a beefy CPU to play at like 100 plus FPS, as you can see right now. Right, so our 1% lows are pretty good still, around 88 FPS. That's not bad at all, you know, and our average is around 130 FPS, so that's really good to see. Of course, if you go inside houses more often than me, you'll see our FPS going up probably. You can still play this game at 1440p with the GTX 1660 Ti, and I'm gonna test that in a separate video. I'm just only not gonna be testing in this one because it's a ton of settings and the video would get too long, because I also want to test 4K with the 1660 Ti. Yes, I plan on doing those videos within like the next week or two. Of course, I still have a ton of GPUs to test season 5 of PUBG still, and yeah, if you want that visual quality experience with the 1660 Ti at 1080p, I think these settings are very adequate for that. I don't feel the need to put it at ultra settings, never felt the need to do so back when I played this game with the GTX 1060, for example, when it launched, because I do have like 600 plus hours in this game. Okay, so ultra settings now, and let's see our averages over here. It's actually down to the 90s right now, so increasing the settings from high to ultra doesn't really give you that much visual fidelity, you know. The graphics look pretty identical to high settings. Maybe the anti-aliasing is a little bit stronger, maybe the textures look a little bit better and the lighting and stuff like that, but it's not really noticeable unless you are looking for those things. And as you can see, our averages suffer a lot, as well as our 1% lows, which are still above 60 FPS, by the way, at least so far. So if you guys have a 60Hz monitor, 1080p, and are playing with the 1660 Ti or GTX 1070, you can definitely run the game at ultra settings and have a very smooth experience, and it's still very smooth even with a 144Hz monitor, which I'm using right now. Yeah, it's just not as smooth as like 100 plus FPS, even on high settings. 130 FPS was very smooth. And finally, we are GPU bound. Looking at the entire city of Pochinki over here, we're getting 85 FPS. As you can see, our 1% lows are pretty solid at around 70 FPS. Very good performance coming out of the GTX 1660 Ti, even at ultra settings. I was actually expecting it to run a little bit slower on ultra, maybe around like 70 to 80 FPS average, but yeah, the game has been optimized throughout the years. Back when it launched, I actually bought it day one, and I had a GTX 1060 and that i7 4770 equivalent. Oh my god, nice, we got our first kill finally. God damn it, I haven't seen anybody actually since we've started this video. Oh my god, what am I doing? I'm freaking out, guys. There's somebody looking at me. Okay guys, we're gonna go. There he is. Oh boy, we don't have cover. Let's do this. Okay, can we do this? Can we get another guy? We need to. Oh my god, I'm so low HP. Can we do this, guys? Oh boy. Okay, we got this. Oh no, it was so fast. The DP28 is actually pretty damn good. Alright guys, I think that's enough maybe. That was probably enough to see our FPS at ultra settings. We got like around 90 FPS average, as you can see there, and 72 FPS, 1% lows. So still a very smooth experience, especially if you have like a 75Hz monitor, 60Hz monitor. This GPU definitely plays PUBG at 1080p without a problem. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was informative and helpful to you, and don't forget to give it a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, keep tuned in for that 1440p test and 4K test. I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. I love you all. Bye bye.